Well, hey, everybody. Blessed day to those who are listening and watching as well. This is another edition of Between Sundays.
Let's go.
These are conversations we're having just to model for our people, and they do it well already, but just it is normal to read the text. It is normal to dive into it, share observations, interpretations, and thoughts on it. This summer, we're in a series that's diving into the parables and stories of Jesus, which I'm loving. It's going to be really a hoot for all of our people. Today, Pastor Brian and Nikki, my coworker.
Hey.
Thanks a lot for being here. Always, Nikki. And our special guest is Lori Camilla.
Let's go, Lori.
Hey, guys. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We love every bit of it. Lori, thanks so much for making time today and being with us.
My pleasure.
Lori, if you don't know, I want to give just a little background on Lori. Served in corporate America. You had a good run in corporate America.
Did.
Recently, not too recently, but have been at Love Inc. for a season.
Correct.
Love Inc. is one of those awesome ministries and not-for-profits that Lord of Glory does support along with many other churches in Lake County. Could you give us a snapshot on Love Inc.?
Yeah, sure. So Love Inc., INC, it's not incorporated. It's in the name of Christ.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So we are a network of churches that are serving in ways that are needed here in Lake County. Couple things I like about it is, first of all, it's a national organization, but we're an affiliate, not a franchise. That's important because there are certain core things that are the same, no matter which of the 110 affiliates across the country you go to, there's going to be some nuts that are the same. But the reality is then our churches get to serve in how our churches here in Lake County are wired and what are the needs in Lake County.
Yeah.
You go to the Love Inc. in Anchorage, Alaska, they have a firewood ministry because that's how they heat their houses. Not so necessary here in Lake County, right? So it's nice that we get to, again, see what the profile of the churches are, how they want to serve, what are the needs in the community, and then Love Inc.'s role is to be that clearinghouse, that linchpin to connect those things together. So we hear the needs in the community. We have a help center, a call-in center, so people get connected with us either through their caseworkers or call us through friends, neighbors. They've seen Love Inc. deliver furniture, whatever. And then we hear their story, so we want to get to know them. Maybe they call us because they need a bed for their kids. That's important. We want to get that to them. But really, we want to understand how did they get there? And the needs are really going to be more than just that bed. How else can we get people connected to resources that are already available in our community? There's a ton of organizations doing a ton of good work. Yep. And so we get to connect people first and foremost to that. In the instance, there may not be something that already supports that in the community, then we get to go to our churches and say, hey, church, here's a good place to use your time, your financial resources, and whatever that's not already being, we're trying not to duplicate things going on in the county. So furniture was a thing that came up a number of years ago. So places like Pads, a safe place, can help people get a roof and a key, which is great. That's a safe place to be. But if you're sleeping on the floor, you're still lacking a lot of dignity. And so Love Inc. is one of the very few places in our county that provides furniture to people. So the churches, we're taking in collections from the community. Then the churches are coming in, they're cleaning the furniture, they're prepping it. We have a couple of very talented people who have interior design backgrounds. And so it's not just a random chair and a random couch being carried into the home, but they do a really good job. Again, it's using our time and talents, right, in ways for the Lord so things are being specifically picked for that family that's going to look good together to make their house a home. Then the churches are physically carrying that into people's homes. Again, it's another chance for the churches to love on the families. What's going on? How are you doing? We're asking that. We're caring. Yep. The churches are praying for them as they're leaving. Again, getting them connected to other resources. But it's Love Inc. is a way for the church to go be the church without the 80-something churches that are connected with us having to each have their own warehouse, each have their own call center. Exactly. We get to be that. We're the admin hub. And then the churches kind of get to come and do what they need to do.
Well, must be encouraging for you to see the church actually work well together.
It's pretty cool. The other thing I like about Love Inc. is that we're purposely multi-denominational. And that I've grown up in ELCMS church. I'm here right now, so that's been my background. But this has been a really fantastic way for my faith to grow because I get to see how other churches worship. And, sometimes if we're doing a Loving Sunday, we're there for the service. I'm like, oh my goodness, I thought this was a Lutheran hymn. It's not. It's a hymn in the church, right? So some of my favorites from growing up, we're singing it at some of these other churches around Lake County. And so it's just a reminder that, again, it's love in the name of Christ, right? So we're doing this, putting Christ at the forefront of that. And then some of those other things, how we worship, how we baptize, how we commune, those are important, right? But that's not the important thing when we're going out and serving.
So beautiful.
So, that's cool. It's good.
Thanks a lot for your work with Love Inc. And anyone or any entity that can get churches to work well together and like be on the same page, I'm all for, because there's work that needs to be done in that area. And like Love Inc. is doing it and benefiting the folks who can be blessed by what the work is being done.
In our community as well as folks within the churches, right? Because we see as much growth within our church and as much service just within the folks in the building, right? Sometimes people are coming to volunteer to help people, but they don't also realize that they are also being helped, right? So we've had a couple people, especially in the wintertime, right? There's the retired folks. We love retired folks because they have daytime availability usually, right? So there's a lot of retired folks in our office, and sometimes during the winter, somebody who's serving 1 day a week will all of a sudden pop up. I'm like, hey, Mary, what are you doing here today? She's like, I needed to be out of the house. I needed to see people. I know so-and-so is here. So the fellowship that's going on within our office or on a Saturday morning when the furniture teams are delivering, there's just as much going on there as for other people, right? It's us and it's a we. It's not us and them. It's really about a we. Like, we all need to be changed. We're transformed by being served, by doing the serving.
That's a very Jesus-y thing.
It is.
Like, it makes sense that it would draw people to that. And I love what you said, like, we want to treat people with dignity.
Absolutely.
Very Jesus-y.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you're a very thoughtful person, Lori. Like Lori's the person that if I'm like, I've got a problem and I really need to think through it well, or I want to do something different, like I go to Lori. She's the person who can like think and brainstorm and teach me how to do Excel. And
love the Excel. That part of my corporate life I have not left behind. That's for sure.
That's awesome. And for our viewers and those listening, Lori is in the special group of people who served as congregational presidents during COVID. There is a support group and a network of people. No, I'm just teasing. You did a great job of shepherding our church through that. That was a great match for your gifts. Another quick thing. We got to get to the text, I know, but just one more thing. I don't know if you know this, Nikki, but Lori's mom is a lifelong career Lutheran school teacher.
oh, I know.
All right, in St. Louis. And when I was a student at Concordia Seminary, we got assigned to a local LCMS school to like do devotions in the classrooms with the kids. And I was assigned to Lori's mom.
No way.
And she was an awesome teacher. And so I would like do a lesson, and I love the kids. Like I loved little kids, right? And had so much fun with them. But wasn't really good with like the discipline of them. Because I just like love playing with them. It was so cute, So in her report, she's like, Brian's good, he'll be great, blah, blah, blah. It's like, just needs to work with discipline the kids. But we had a great time. God bless your parents, Lori. Hey, Nikki, get us into the text today, and then we'll have a conversation about it. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, so we are talking about the parable of the Good Samaritan. So this is in Luke 10, verse 25 through 37, if you want to follow along. We're going to read it. If you have a different translation, I think that's actually awesome. You can look at it and see the differences. And I think you're going to draw different things out because we just translate to the best of our ability.
That's right.
And it might mean that there are some things that just look a little different, but you're still going to get God's word. So we are going to start in verse 25. All right, so let's read it. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all of your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself. I love that it tells us that. So he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a story in very Jesus fashion. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down in the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him into an inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is one of those stories that has like entered into kind of mainstream culture a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. But so it's almost like it's difficult because of its familiarity. Like we've seen it so much. We've heard it so much. We almost want to like pass by this parable on the other side. Oh, I know this one, right? But like as you dive into it again and fresh, Nikki, what jumps out to you?
Yeah. So I did some Googling on what is the road. What does the road look like? Because I think I've heard a lot of different things. And it was nicknamed like the Ascent of Blood or the Way of Blood because of how infamous it was that people were robbed and beaten. So it's like the guy was robbed and beaten. Like, what's new? Like, this is what happens on this road. It's almost like descending the Grand Canyon rim to river. That's the height difference.
Holy
that's
cow.
how hard it is.
Oh,
like,
wow.
that's how hot it is. That's how many curves. And so it just... like, there's no water, there's no shade. And I'm like, this sounds like a youth group nightmare. Like, this is not going to go well. So the fact that this is like a very difficult path and dangerous and a risk, like that's very well known.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I would gather by just reading it. Like, I have to kind of look into that.
But it does make sense. Like Jesus always like meets people where they're at. Like the way he would have, like readers would have heard this and be, oh, I know that road.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right. So he is like using, once again, this summer we're focusing on that Jesus intentionally tells stories and parables for a reason. So it's like his listeners would have heard this and be like, yep, happened to my aunt's uncle's nephew's podiatrist. Same thing happened.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go.
How about the message behind it?
Yeah. So I think it's funny that the person he's talking to is just trying to trick Jesus. So his question is like, okay, so you're telling me a neighbor, like, who do I have to do this for? Like, ultimately, who are the people? Just point me towards them. And he responds with the story, which is very Jesus fashion of like, I want you to think a little more about this. So we know like Samaritans, like the guy he's talking to, Samaritans are probably like the opposite of the people that he wants to help. So if you think about just like, who's the opposite of who I want to Jesus to put in my path to help, like that's who he's talking about. To the point that I love that he says at the very end, like the expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. He can't even say Samaritan.
Right.
It's like
That's
if
a good observation.
Yeah, it's like if I was like talking about Packers fans because I'm a Vikings fan, and be like the one in the green shirt.
Or Michigan Ohio State people, the one that cannot be named, right?
Exactly.
Can't even give him a shout out.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So I think it's so funny that he flips the focus. He's like, okay, like who doesn't matter? It's like, you got to be a neighbor. Like, I will show you who. I'll put them in your path. Just don't walk around them. Like, I just imagine, like, did they have to, if you think about the Grand Canyon, like, how did they walk around them? Like, did they just, like, step over them? Or did they, like, literally, like,
it said
go
cross
walk
to the
around
other
a
side,
boulder?
so it depends
like,
on how, like, wide the road was, or they're, like, chariots and horses and stuff going. Like, it's, you know, kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Clearly, there was no other way to get there, right? Because if it was a common path, it was dangerous, but you still had to risk it if you wanted to get from here to there. So it was a place to be.
Yeah, and probably the point is, like, everyone had the chance, and they ditched it. They're like, nope, I'm not going to help.
But I think, too, it's easy to judge, right? Because we've got the benefit of, whatever, 2,000 years of hindsight. But, you know, the priest and the Levite, it's easy to judge them. But I've recently been challenged in a Bible study that I've been taking that, like, we've got different lenses, right? And so if I put on the lens of the priest and the Levite, my understanding is they had rules to follow. So if you would have asked the Levite, I mean, clearly he did what he did, but like, it makes me wonder, was he doing it because that was the constriction that he was under? He thought he was following the rules, right? He's following the letter of the law, but not the intent of the law.
The heart.
And, it's the uncleanness, I can't touch blood. So those are some things that I've heard in studies before, right?
Yeah.
So it's, I think to me, it's also a caution of we got to be careful who and how we judge, like what is their perspective. I'm not saying it's right? So it's not an excuse, but it's a reason. Like here's why they would have passed by, but then still challenged, right? Was that the right thing to do? And if we are supposed to be doing something, if we're presented with this situation, our rules say to do this, but are we following the letter of the law or the intent of the law?
Wow.
And I don't know, to me, this kind of reads of that a little bit.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if Jesus was sitting down at this table with us and is like, okay, let me tell it in your terms, what he would say.
What would the story be to me if I asked that question? What would my story be?
Right.
I don't know. That'd be interesting.
I think, just thinking about Love Inc., you're like, you're giving him a bed, you're giving him a place to sleep, but you really need to give him a bed. Like they need dignity. Like there's something more here that you need to do.
Right. And even stepping beyond that, it's beyond the physical items are important because then that's going to, keeping it in the loving context, the physical items are important because we need to, meet those basic needs. But once those needs are met, then that frees up kind of my emotional space to be able to go on and do the next thing, right? If I'm living in a situation where I don't have a bed, I'm struggling for food, that I'm living day to day, right? I can't think about, saving for this or, when can I take my next vacation, right? I'm just trying to figure out, can I get my kids to school? Can I put a meal on their table tonight? And, those basic stuff. So if somebody can come in and support with some of those basic needs, but then continue to walk alongside, right? So like Love Inc. has developed life skills classes as well, so that as we're delivering the bed, we're inviting people into this longer term walk. So it's a chance for the church to show up for a group of people that may or may not have had the church show up for them before, and to build this community. And if you show up at First Pres in Waukegan on a Thursday night, there's at least a dozen churches that are touching that evening, 60-something people sitting down and having dinner before we go to class. And what I love about that is you look across that room and you don't know who's there to learn versus who's going to be standing in front of class.
That's so cool.
In front of the group, kind of leading and facilitating the conversation. Because again, it's not an us and them, it's a we. So we're learning together in that environment. But to get people meet their physical needs in order to get a chance to walk alongside, to earn that chance to walk alongside somebody, right? I showed up for you once. Now here's a chance I'm going to show up for you repeated. I think that'd be interesting. And I guess pulling it back to the scripture, right?
Does that.
So the Samaritan then brings him to the inn and is like, I'm going to show up, right? So the innkeeper had to trust that the investment the innkeeper is going to make, I wonder what that leisure looked like, right? And do people really pass by again? I don't know. That whole thing is interesting too, that the innkeeper needed to trust that this guy was coming back. He was promising to come back. Jesus doesn't tell us whether he did or not, but I'd be kind of curious.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that. We don't know if he came back.
Right.
I think we can assume, but he kind of stops the
maybe
story
it doesn't
there.
matter.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't. It might not.
That's not the point.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the point. Right.
I'm challenged to think about, your point, if you were to confront the Levites and the priests for doing that, the Levite might be like, well, dude, don't you understand? I couldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's why I didn't. Right. So it makes me think, crud, what are those restrictions that I've placed in my life that the Lord would love to dude, Brian, rethink that a little bit, because you've put a constriction on what I want to do through you that makes me a little uncomfortable. So thank you very much.
It's good. But here's the part that I think gives me a lot of hope is Jesus is the Good Samaritan. Even when we are we missed it. Yeah. Jesus is going to make sure that that person is taken care of.
You are so Lutheran. I love it. No, you're right. Jesus is the center of this text because Jesus is the one who did this first for us. Right. And so I think this first model is extravagant grace. He didn't just rescue him and be like, hey, buddy, hope tomorrow's better for you.
Yeah.
He basically hands the innkeeper his credit card and is like, all right, I've got it covered now, which is incredible. Supposedly 2 silver coins is 2 months wage, 2 months of hospitality for that guy.
Oh yeah.
Which is an enormous amount of grace. So I think first we want to see, hey, Jesus first rescued Brian, rescued Lori, rescued Nikki, pulled us, drew us to the Father, provided everything we needed to have a relationship with him. Then he says, hey, now as you've receive that, go do that.
I think, yeah, for those of you who are like super anxious about all the hard things that are happening in the world, like, I guess this is what gives me hope, is because sometimes I'm like, there's so much to do. Like, I can't possibly do it all. But if we were all just good neighbors, like how Jesus describes, like, you just help the people who are in front of you. Can you imagine how different that would be? Be like insanely different.
Yeah, and like opening your eyes to see who those people truly are, right? And not just like task of the day. I got to work on that.
Yeah.
Lori, any last thoughts as you engage with this text that you feel like we missed?
I don't know. I feel like that we use the word neighbor to mean somebody who lives next door and like a good neighbor, right? So plug for Brian Budil. But in this case, to me, it can be hard, right? Samaritan had to make a choice to stop, right? It was a hard and a sticky situation, but the fact that that person chose to lean into that, I think, is a good example for us, right?
That's right.
Not being a neighbor isn't always going to be easy, but we do what we can with, like Nikki said, who was placed in front of us. It's a good challenge for us to consider and to pray about.
Absolutely. And I keep coming back to, like, who would I have a justifiable excuse to not, like, you'd be like, you don't understand, that person has shanked me before, so I'm not going to help them again. There's ways that we can get around it in our own minds, but Jesus is like, hey, just rethink that.
You know who I think of? I think of cars that are stopped on the side of the road. Like, every time I pass them, I'm like, I should stop, like, and see if I can help. But I'm also like, I know nothing about cars. Like, I'm a lady who's just driving, but my dad would be like, don't you dare stop. You don't know who that is. And that's just the example that comes to my mind. Like, I think of this story every time I pass one. But if Justin's with me, I'm like, we're stopping. Like, we're going to go see if they need help.
Yeah, I heard it said, like, a good move there is there someone I can call for you?
It's probably good.
Like,
no, it's definitely not a perfect example. Like, I probably shouldn't stop if I know nothing about cars.
Lori, thanks so much.
Yeah, it's intention. What skills do you have to offer?
That's
and
right.
if it's there, then you do it. Yeah.
Lori, thanks so much. Thanks so much for being around. And I said it to you before once, like, we don't believe in reincarnation. We don't. But I just would love one day for, like, folks like Lori and others who are in our church family and in other churches who do so much good in their local church to, like, step in the role of the pastor or the DCE for a minute and know how much those people mean to us. Who, like, come alongside us and are like, hey, I'm for you and for what we're trying to do here. So great to spend time in the God's Word with you. All right, another awesome edition of Between Sundays. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much, everybody.